So in this video, I'm going to be talking you through the different variations that I do with all my horses on a weekly basis, why we do it, how we do it, and much more. So although I am a dressage rider, and that is what I compete in and that is what I absolutely love doing, I think it's really, really important that you give your horses and also yourself other things like variation within your training. The different reasons for this is because, one, I think it's so good for their minds. I think it keeps them interested in their work, it keeps them varied, it keeps them happy. And also I think it's really good for their muscles, for their joints to not have like repetitive strain put on them. I think it's good for them to do, different things. So next variation is pole work, and there are so many different varieties for this, from just poles on the ground to raised poles, then to jumping. So our horses do all of them. First of all, with the just normal pole work, it's so good for them to go over them, but also what we do is we get them to sort of weave around them to really bend their rib cage as they sort of like a serpentine around the poles, just to really get them moving. We can also leg yield them over the poles, which is really good, and then you can just go straight over them. There are so many exercises out there for pole work. There's just, so much you can do, it's amazing. And then you can do the raised poles, which is really good. Again, it's adding more movement into them. A vet once told us that the raised poles is like them going on the water treadmill. So that's really beneficial, really good, and it's really accessible for us. And as the horses get stronger, the raised poles can get higher. If you have a young horse or quite a weak horse, I suggest that you start with just pole work, don't raise them. But then as the horse gets stronger, you can start moving them up a little higher. So what I actually do with the advanced horses, so like Wilf, who's doing Grand Prix, I can then sort of practice more of a passage trot over the poles just to get that strength in there for him. So what our horses do, depending how busy the schedule is with like competing or when I'm away, if I'm here, sometimes through the week I will do it. I'd say we're quite flexible with what we do with the horses. We do have like the skeleton thing that we do with them, the skeleton schedule, but often we mix it up, change it around for them because it's much more fun. So sometimes I'll just jump on them and do it, riding them. We also add jumping into their schedules sometimes as well, because I think I'm definitely not a show jumper, but it's great fun for me and it's great fun for them, and all my horses really like jumping. They might not be the most natural at it when we start, but actually they get much better. So Wilfred, for example, was shocking at jumping, but he's got much better as we've gone. So yeah, there's loads of varieties you can do with the pole work. So another variation that I do with the horses, and it's like my newfound love, it's so good, is the groundwork. So I started training with a lady called Claire Gallimore, who trained with a guy called Tristan Tucker, who developed the TRT method, which is a method for groundwork. And I am literally so in love with it for so many reasons. When I started, I really didn't understand how important groundwork was, because I didn't know anything about it and I'd never been trained in it. I didn't realise how amazing it was for the horses' bodies, how amazing it was for the horses' minds. So what I found from doing the groundwork is that the horses really learn like a good posture to be in. They learn how to relax for themselves. So what happens is you put them under a little bit of pressure, and then you teach them to relax through that pressure, and then you can build it into your ridden work. So actually with Wilf now, I've moved it into the ridden work. I still do it on the ground with him, but he does things like riding over tarpaulin, going around umbrellas. It's just absolutely amazing. But the actual groundwork is so good for their bodies as well, because it really gets them to use themselves in the right way. It gets them so much more supple, so much more soft. And I just feel like the bond between you and them is incredible. It's also been really useful for horses that I've had on box rest coming back into work, because if a horse has been in a box for a while, they haven't used their body, they haven't moved their body, and if you plonk a rider straight on them, and they're quite fresh anyway, and they're quite stiff and sore from just doing nothing, it's not ideal. But up until I learnt the groundwork, I didn't realise there was another way. But now I know the groundwork, I've worked with one of the horses on the ground a lot, and it's made such a huge difference to her body and her mind, and I'm just literally, I can't put into words how happy I am that I have discovered this. And there's just so much to it as well. Like, you're always learning, you're always growing in it. And yeah, it's just amazing, amazing, amazing. So if you're thinking about adding more variation into your horse's work, I think it's important to remember just to use what resources you have. So some things that I've mentioned you might not be able to do, and that's okay, but just use your imagination with things. I think as well it's really important to stay open-minded, so don't be closed off to new ideas. I think it's great to be always learning, to always, be open to different things. And also don't be like frustrated if it takes time to learn to do that new variation, or your horse needs the time to learn to do it. Again, that's all part of the process, that's all part of going through it. When I started the groundwork, it was literally like, it was mind-boggling for me. I found it really difficult to start with, and then as I did more and more and practice, it became second nature for me. And I know that as I move on to the next level, I'm going to feel like it's hard again, and then that is just the process of learning. So stick with it, it really is worth it. So having a big variation in the horse's work is not only great for them, but it's also really good for me as a rider with my mindset. So I used to be quite a perfectionist. I still have tendencies of being a perfectionist. How I always say, I'm a recovering perfectionist. But yeah, so when I was younger, I used to really struggle with this, and I think that's actually why I went into the dressage route, because it's all about precision, it's all about the minor details, and which is what I really like. It's in my personality. But when you're dealing with horses, it's so important to not to be too black and white. I think, you know, there's that messy middle, there's that grey area of learning. And especially when you're dealing with horses and animals, you can't be too black and white. So what the variation, the different stuff has taught me is just to be more flexible and just to really listen to the horse, and that it doesn't matter if you get a mistake and it doesn't feel perfect, and just to have fun. And I think especially with the jumping, that's really taught me to just like let go a little bit more and not control everything. As well, riding young horses has really taught me that, because the more you try and control them, the less control you have. It's almost like you've got to learn to just go with them a little bit more and not sort of try and get it too much, get them too under your thumb. But what I mean is that it's good to try different things. Even if your discipline is in one area, I think it's really good to go and try other things for your mindset. It opens the world up a little bit more for you. So that is the end of the video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it and found it useful and insightful. I would love to hear how you guys vary your horse's work. So just add a comment in the box below, and yeah, I can't wait to bring more videos to you guys. So make sure to subscribe and stay tuned.